Royal Caribbean won't be visiting Labadee, its private beach destination in Haiti, for at least another 6 months. That's on top of another, 6 months, going back to April of 2025, in which they didn't visit there. And if you go back even further than that, last year there was another pause right during the summer, and many months were missing over there. And that's really got a lot of people thinking, is it time to really punt on Labadee? And it's a mixed bag as to how practical that is, but I wanted to talk about the situation today because if you're somebody who has a cruise booked in 2026 and is scheduled to visit Labadee, well, obviously you're probably thinking the same thing a lot of other folks are thinking. Is like, are we actually going to go there? And for other folks, they're thinking, why is Royal Caribbean even pretending they can go there? I think it's a very complicated situation when it comes to Labadee. And this is also from a business case as much as it is from a guest experience standpoint. So number one, I am surprised how long this pause has gone on. Haiti has had issues for a long time. This is not new, but the issues that Haiti is facing right now are certainly the worst we've seen in, I can certainly recall in recent memory. Haiti has had a lot of issues over the years, and I just, remember their assassinations and problems and all sorts of things, but really, the pause and visits to Labadee have never really been much of an issue because Labadee is in a really remote location. It's cut off from the mainland. There's a barbed wire fence. There are guards there. And to my knowledge, other than an occasional protest where somebody shows up with a boat to protest, I don't know, something, there really hasn't been any incidents that I can recall in all my years of covering Labadee or Royal Caribbean, I suppose, with RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. I mean, I can really count on my fingers the amount of time there's even been an issue necessitating a skipped visit, let alone, skipping weeks, months, or in this case, almost a year of visits in there. And so it's a very curious situation. Obviously, what's happening now is completely different, but there's a couple different factors at play. I mean, on the one hand, you have the history of Labadee, which is that Royal Caribbean's had it since 1988. It's actually Royal Caribbean's first private destination they had even before Coco Key, and it's been, in the company for a really long time, and they have a really good connection with the folks that live there. And so there's that aspect, the legacy they have there. And I would also point out that while Haiti is having a lot of problems, when Haiti traditionally has problems, they're relegated primarily to the cities. I mean, it's not that you can make the argument, Labadee, a tourist destination, would be a really ripe target. Could you imagine the optics of that? Well, you might be right about that, except that has never really materialized in anything. But of course, maybe that's why, actually, as I talk about this now, perhaps that's why we're not having any visits for a number of months. I mean, Royal Caribbean never talks about specific threats or reasons why. They've always said in all their communication about any pause in Labadee, due to an abundance of caution, which to me has always meant, well, the optics of us sending cruise ship passengers and tourists to a place in Haiti, no matter how remote it is kind of a bad look, considering the rest of the country is literally suffering. And I think that's maybe the issue. I don't know that for a fact, but that's always been my I'm reading between the lines thing. The thing, though, if you want to talk about the big picture and what should Royal Caribbean do with Labadee, the curious case of Labadee, it's a tougher one to solve. I mean, number one, I really don't think Royal Caribbean will ever sell Labadee. And there's a couple of reasons for it. I think number one, they have the legacy aspect. I think they do value it as a destination. I think they see that at some point they'd like to be able to return there. And so for those reasons, it makes sense. Number two, who are they going to sell it to? I mean, you're not going to sell it to anybody. No one's buying Labadee right now. The value of Labadee right now is probably less than even cruise ships during the pandemic in 2020. I mean, you got to have a buyer, right? And they're not going to give it away. They have too much invested in that area to simply give it away. So the idea that they're going to abandon it, give it away, sell it, I don't think is practical. I mean, it's nearly impossible to do that because they'd be looking for, again, as a publicly traded company, some kind of return on their investment. I think it's the same reason, to some extent, it's a bit of a stretch of a metaphor here, but I think it's the same reason why the Vision class ships, like Grandeur of the Seas, have not been sold yet. And that's because I think the market quite isn't there to require it. Now, there's other factors at play also with, Grandeur of the Seas and the aging Vision class ships. So I don't want to go too far into that metaphor. But my point is that you've got to have an ROI on there. They're not just simply going to give things away from there. So I really don't think they want to sell it. And I have no idea what their, bottom line looks like. When Labadee is closed for this long, right? I mean, everybody that worked there, nearly everybody that worked there, either came from two camps. One was from on the cruise ship, so no problem there because those people are there. They're on the cruise ship working. And then you had some locals that would be, ferried in from a nearby village and whatnot. And obviously, they're not, W-2 employees. They're not paying them benefits. They're not, being paid not to work. I do believe there are still some folks who are there, maybe to watch the facility. I know that some ships have been making stops at Labadee, like just to pull in, drop off supplies, and then be on their way. I know actually one of our readers, Don and Judy, mentioned actually their cruise. I forget what ship they were on. It was something, but anyway, they recently did this as of like a week or two ago, where they made like a quick stop in Labadee. It wasn't part of the itinerary. They just, were in the neighborhood, stopped the supplies, dropped them off, and then moved on. So what I'm trying to say is that the cost of keeping it up is pretty minimal at this point. It's not like they're running, an empty hotel that has to run air conditioning and, there's food and service and it's like there's a high overhead. I don't have any access to it, but considering it's pretty much a beach operation, which most people that work there are pretty much either contractors or brought off the ship, I gotta think the cost of business has gotta be on the low side for that. So it's like one of those situations where it's actually, cheaper to keep her kind of situation where it's just easier to hit that pause button or keep it paused, I suppose, and just leave it as is. On a personal note, I really hope they don't get rid of it. I do think that there will be a time and a place down the line in which the current issues facing Haiti will be rectified in a scenario that will be at least acceptable from a global perspective, that they're not going to fix Haiti. I hate to say it's never going to happen, but I don't really think it's ever going to happen. But at least they can get it back into a slightly more stable situation in which the safety of the Haitian people is not necessarily at the kind of risk that it is right now, in which there's complete instability, lack of a government at all, and really gang violence dominating the country. My hope is that we're going to see some change there. At the time of this recording, there was an article that came out that the U.S. and Panama, I believe, are working on a new resolution with the UN to try to send a new peacekeeping mission there, because the original one that was sent in was not funded very well and was ineffective because of that. And so anyway, my hope is that things will obviously turn around, not just because I want to go to Labadee, but because obviously for the people of Haiti who have been suffering for so long. I mean, this is not a decades long problem. This is a centuries long problem. So this is why I'm trying to keep my expectations in line, but I do hope that they're going to be able to get it back into a scenario where, life can return to at least some semblance of normalcy, in the sense that you don't have, gangs ruling the country, if that makes sense. Ultimately, though, one of the questions I'm sure people are thinking about was, will I be comfortable going to Labadee in the future? If Royal Caribbean were to revisit, again, right now the pause goes through the end of April, so let's say May 2026. Would I want to go to Labadee in May 2026? And if I'm being honest with you, the answer is yes. I mean, obviously, barring some significant changes in the situation there. But I really do feel that, number one, Labadee's remote location has always been to its credit, that it's so far away from anything that, there is enough warning, and it's so remote that obscurity would help its cause. Number two, it is walled off. There is a private security force. I'm not saying the private security forces are the U.S. Marines, but I do feel like there's risks in everything in life, and I feel like the risks involved there seemingly appear to be quite low. I'm not saying there aren't any. I just feel personally, like, given all the years I've visited Labadee, and in those years, let's be real, Haiti was never an ideal country to begin with in terms of its stability. But, if the situation were to present itself that Labadee and would it be open again and Royal Caribbean be able to visit there, I certainly wouldn't mind going there. I don't know that everybody would feel that way. I remember when Royal Caribbean restarted visits last fall, there were a lot of folks who voiced their displeasure at that. I mean, for Royal Caribbean, it's a lose-lose situation because, if they don't go there, you get the folks who are like, why aren't you going there? There's nothing wrong with not going there. And if they do go there, you get the folks who are like, why are you going there? It's crazy to go there, right? There's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking going on in terms of, to go or not to go. And this is part of the reason for this podcast episode, is I wanted to bring this up because I do think it's a very complicated problem for Royal Caribbean as a business, and as from a money and cents standpoint, and then from their guest experience standpoint. But if we learn anything from last year, it's that there were a lot of folks who, brought up all these doomsday prophecies about what could happen at Labadee, and so far, at least, thank goodness, nothing came of that. There were no terrible scenarios. There were no gang issues there. Royal Caribbean always monitoring the situation in the area. They kept it running for a number of months until clearly, for whatever reason, they felt that it wasn't safe to do so and have since hit the pause button. So I do think that there is, in my opinion, value in keeping it going. As I said, I don't think the overhead is such that it's really costing them, arms and legs to keep it going. And there really isn't a buyer for the market anyway. So like between those two reasons, I feel like they're probably just better off pausing it, leaving it as is, and then revisiting it. It is surprising to me how long this has gone on. I never would have imagined that a pause would have gone on. In fact, I was nearly positive they were going to restart visits in August. If you remember, the previous pause was through like the first week of August, and there was nothing. Royal Caribbean didn't say anything. We were like a week or two away from that, and this is exactly how things went when Royal Caribbean restarted visits last year, when they just were like, they didn't make a big, hoopla about it. They just simply all of a sudden when a ship went and visited it. So I kind of thought this is exactly what they're doing again, and then they extended the pause, and now they've done it another 6 months. So, you never know. It's certainly going to be a wait and see situation here, but I do hope that Royal Caribbean will be able to revisit it, and that the waiting period, while hopefully not as long as it looks like, at least right now, 6 months, if not more, will result in our ability to return to it, because I just don't think that giving up on it is quite required, necessary yet. All right, friends, we are going to answer some listener emails, and in the interest of full disclosure, I'm really far behind on emails. There was a point in this podcast where I was running out of emails, and that's no longer a problem. You all are sending me plenty of emails, which is great. Matt at RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. All right, first email is from Sarah. Hey, Matt, been a huge fan of your podcast for 2 years now. Thanks for all the great info and tips. My family and I are going on a 7-night Mediterranean cruise on Allure. A couple questions for you. We're cruising out of Rome, but per your suggestion, flying in a few days before. Any recommendations of what to do while we're in Rome? I haven't been to Rome, but I'm going to go on a limb and say you should see the amazing sights there. I mean, really, a place like Rome, Italy, to me, there's two things you want to focus on: the history and the food. When you're in Rome, a city that is steeped in culture and history as much as it is, you really want to focus on that, I feel like. So I would definitely prioritize the sites, especially if you're interested in some of the bigger sites, like if you want to go to the Vatican or you want to go to the Colosseum, things that have really long lines. I mean, this is true of any major city. When I was in London, we applied the same strategy here. Prioritize, 3 or 4 things you really want to see, book the tours that get you front of the line, blah, 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 all those things. And then everything else is kind of like you can kind of figure it all out and work around that. Number 2, we don't have an excursion booked for Palma de Mallorca. Any recommendations of what to do or places to eat? Unfortunately, I've not been there, so I don't have any recommendations for you with Palma de Mallorca. I would recommend, though, if you go to the RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com message boards, we have a shore excursion section, and I know for a fact there are many different threads about what to do in Palma de Mallorca. And then last but not least, we're very excited to be cruising on Allure after her refurbishment. What's the number one thing we need to do while on this ship? I really think the answer is go to the Mason Jar Bar. I love the Mason Jar on both Wonder and Utopia. They added it on Allure, and it's one of my favorite places to go in the evening, so definitely check that out. Our next email is coming from Chef Steven. Hey, Matt, saw your video about the announcement of Ovation, Harmony, and Liberty of the Seas getting amplifications in the spring of 26. I looked at the schedule for Liberty. It looks like it's doing a 4-nighter on March 30th, arriving back on April 3rd, leaving from and returning to Fort Lauderdale. Then, she's doing a transatlantic, arriving in Southampton on the 19th of April. I could not find any other cruise till May 29th for a 2-nighter out of Southampton. I sailed on Liberty last year and I loved it. She's one of my favorites of the smaller ships, and I'm glad she's getting amplification. Thanks for all you do on the blog. I love some of these changes they're doing. So, of course, the 3 ships, Ovation, Harmony, and Liberty. It's interesting. I feel like the amplifications for these 3 are not necessarily as grandiose as Royal was doing back with pre-pandemic when they were doing like Freedom and Independence and Mariner. But there are some significant upgrades. And the Ovation and Liberty definitely need the help. Harmony, being in Oasis class, I always thought it had a little bit of a leg up. But simple things like adding playmakers to Harmony is a big one. Although that being said, I'm not sure why there isn't a playmakers on Liberty, but that's a different story for a different day. Nonetheless, I do like the changes. I'm always for upgrades, new features, things of that nature. So yeah, I think it's really some nice upgrades that are coming there. And I too am excited for some of these changes that are be going on here. And I'm equally happy that Royal is back to, upgrading these ships. Our next email is from Lisa Hawkins of Ashburn, Virginia. My fiance and I just booked our first cruise on Royal Caribbean. We've sailed with other cruise ships in the past, but have tried different ones. We're going to be sailing on Explorer in May of 2026 to Italy, Greece, and Croatia. While I was looking for suggestions on the internet, that's what I tried to say there, I came across your podcast just 2 weeks ago and have been binging it ever since. Have you already done a podcast that focuses on either the sailing route or romantic things to do on the ship as honeymooners? We enjoy being social, but we like our quiet time too. Any suggestions on what Royal has to do to offer to make our honeymoon extra special, or maybe extra perks we can buy that might be free, rather. Thanks for so many great tips and suggestions so far. We are really looking forward to our first Royal Caribbean cruise. First of all, congratulations. Honeymoon cruise is a great way to go about it. We spent our honeymoon on a Royal Caribbean cruise back on Mariner of the Seas, and it is definitely the way to go about it. There aren't a whole lot of things that are honeymoon specific. Like I believe there is a just married cabin decor you can book through the cruise planner website. But that's pretty much it. That is like specifically designed, made for, and marketed to honeymooners. Beyond that, I think we get this question a lot: how to make your cruise special, like what you can do to just like special things. And this can be true for honeymooners, it can be true for anniversaries, it can be true for birthdays, it can be true for almost any reason, right? And what I always tell people when it comes to how to make your honeymoon extra special, you really want to, I think, spend money on the things you might not ordinarily spend money on that are important to you. What I mean by that is, like, as an example, you can do a couples massage at the Vitality Spa. But of course, if a massage doesn't appeal to you, then don't do that, obviously. But that is one idea that's out there. Booking especially restaurants. You'll be in Europe, so I can't give you the other standby option I usually give, which is to splurge a perfect day at Coco Key. So really, when you're talking about, your honeymoon, I would, first of all, focus on your time in port. And I'm not sure what your hours are in port, but if there's ever a day in which you're in port long enough to have a dinner, well, how about finding a great romantic resort to go have, dinner at, and go and have a dinner in one of these cities in Italy as opposed to a dinner on the ship? That might be something cool to do there. Private shore excursions. Maybe you book in one of these places a private tour guide. Instead of going with a Royal Caribbean or a group tour, you book something on your own. That's a private tour. That would make it. It's not so much about being intimate as it is just enjoying it, splurging a little bit. I think that's really the biggest thing about that. Certainly on your reservation, when you book your cruise, you can put on there that it's your honeymoon in the notes section. When you go to dining rooms and anywhere else, you always mention it's your honeymoon. You never know, you might get a little, something here, like a piece of cake, or I don't know, who knows? But it doesn't hurt to do that. But really, there isn't, like, again, other than the decorations, there isn't anything specifically for honeymooners, but you can certainly make it special in a way that, to me, is all about, going a little bit extra and splurging a little bit. Next, we have an email from somebody who didn't put their name down here. This is a response to your recent posting of what you'd like to see on the next class of ships. Another question to be asked is, what is the twilight plan for the Vision and Voyager class ships? The smaller, sub 2,800 passenger ships are going to be aging gracefully, but they are aging. My guess is the Discovery class is the middle ground between the Oasis Quantum and the Freedom Voyager class ships. With the popularity of the World Cruise last year, I would assume that demand for the ships with the ability to access smaller ports is a planning factor that has been addressed. To that point, is there a forum where suggestions to Royal leadership can be levied? The items I like to see on the Discovery class are ships that are designed for longer voyages, a version of the 270 area, Central Park area to include a lawn area, bring back the Viking Crown aft end area, could be designed as suite and crown lounges located as well as in that spot. Coastal Kitchen would be a great addition, and a kids zone with their own restaurant, juice bar, ice cream factory. Thanks for your time. These are great suggestions, by the way. I feel like some of these, I'm not an engineer, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like, in order to fit into certain smaller ports, some of these features that you suggest, which are great ideas, may not work there. But hey, I love the ideas nonetheless. To answer your question, is there a forum where suggestions to Royal leadership can be levied? Not directly. Royal doesn't solicit those kind of suggestions. You certainly could put it in your post-cruise survey. Theoretically, that should go to those people, but it's not really what you're looking for, to be honest with you. It's one of those, it's like a gray area. Like, officially, I think Royal Caribbean would tell you they don't solicit ideas because they don't want to have to, deal with, like, well, we took this idea from Bob and now we owe Bob money or credit or whatever, or somebody come back. It's like movies, like you ever watch the end of a movie, at the end of the credits, it's like, all ideas, like they don't take ideas from the public for movies because they don't want to come back, have a smash hit, and then all of a sudden that guy or gal who suggested it is like, hey, that was my idea, you owe me like 10% or whatever. I think they want to avoid that kind of situation. Anyway, I digress. Other than like the post-cruise survey, I'm not even sure, and I don't know that it would really get to where it's supposed to go. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, there's really not a medium for that, but I like your ideas. In fact, I like the Kid Zone idea a lot. It's a really good suggestion. Next email's from Angela. Hey, Matt, longtime listener, love the show. My daughter and I are selling on Wonder of the Seas next summer, and we decided to Springfield Labadee package. Quick question. For the $20 per person credit, as I've seen info online, is it $20 per person per day per restaurant, or is it just a flat $20 per person per day? Thanks for your help. Can't wait to hear all about Star of the Seas. So it's $20 per person per day per restaurant. So you can go to you can go to Playmakers. That's a $20 a day restaurant. Angela, you can go there, your daughter can go there. You both get $20 a person. The next day, you can do the same thing again. You just can't go to Playmakers twice in the same day. Does that make sense? Pretty straightforward, I think. Next email, cracking through some emails here, is from Diane and Brian Rankin. Hi, Matt. I'm wondering if you could help me decide. I went on a cruise 15, 20 years ago, and I was so sick. We had rough weather. Our day at Coquina was canceled, and we were diverted to Puerto Rico instead. Anyway, it was on a smaller ship, Radiance of the Seas. I heard maybe a larger ship would be better fit with someone with seasickness issues. I've been watching your videos like crazy and love your content. I know that Icon is the largest ship right now. However, it may be so big there will be a lot of children and too many people, and it would be overwhelming for my husband. So my question is, what ship would you recommend we try for our second cruise? We're located in South Jersey. Cape Liberty would save us on airfare. I'm only drive 3 hours, save on airfare. I was looking on Oasis only because I saw docks in New Jersey. Any thoughts? By the way, our dates are September, October, November 2026. Well, if I'm restricted to what you just told me, then your only choice is Oasis. Here's what I will tell you. Yes, theoretically, a bigger ship feels less motion. But Diane and Brian, I would never sit here and tell you that it's motion proof and that you won't get seasick. There's a couple things. Number one, if I were you, no matter which ship you go on, I would start taking an over-the-counter medication like Bonine a day before your cruise. So 24 hours before your cruise, you take it once a day. Take the first pill and take it every single day. You could also go to your doctor and get the behind the ear patch, which requires a prescription. I believe it's a scopolamine, something like that. And that you place, there's nothing to take. It just sits behind your ear the entire time. The side effect is you get like dry mouth, but that would make seasick if you ask me. That's an idea as well. I would definitely don't chance it. Start off with that, number one. Number two, seasick is one of those things where, yes, it can happen. It happens to me sometimes. It's been a while since I've gotten it, but it can occur. Bigger ships are less susceptible to it, but it doesn't mean it can't do it. So I don't want you to go into this thinking, oh, we're booking the Oasis of the Seas. Now there's no chance we're going to get seasick. I mean, there's still a chance it could happen. I would really also point to your cabin location being important. I would book a cabin that is mid-ship. I would actually, if I were you, I would pick a low deck balcony cabin mid-ship. That's usually, on the Oasis class, I'm not sure if they have them on deck 6, but right around there, deck 6, deck 7, which is probably the lowest decks for a balcony, mid-ship. Prioritize that, pay more for it. I think that's where I would go with that. But yeah, I mean, based on your recommendations, the Oasis class, I mean, here's the thing though, you kind of poo-pooed the Icon for too many kids. You're going to have a lot of kids on an Oasis class. I mean, Royal Caribbean is a family cruise line. You're going to have a lot of kids on any ship. So I'm not sure you should use that as a prerequisite. But I will tell you that I think that Oasis is a good choice. So there's that. But I wanted to also mention a couple of your preconceived notions might be not wrong, but you might be overlooking something. That's all. Next email is from Rich. Hi, Matt. My wife and I have been watching and listening to you for a long time. Thanks for all the great info. We recently booked a cruise on Harmony, scheduled for her upcoming amplification. I know you just love to speculate on upcoming changes. We've seen the announcement on what's being added, but do you have any thoughts on what's going away? For example, a Local Fresh replaces Mini Bites, Playmakers replaces Sabor. What do you think? Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And I feel like some of these changes that Royal is making, we've already seen this now with Ovation and Liberty. So going through the list on Harmony, some of them are easy. Like the Pesky Parrot is going to replace the Bionic Bar. That's you don't have to have a Royal Caribbean blog to figure that out. El Loco Fresh will replace the Wipeout Bar for sure. Samba Grill remains in the Solarium Bistro. That's easy. Lime and Coconut replaces the pool bar. Refresh Solarium, cool. Playmakers replaces Sabor. Ultimate Family Suite, Ultimate Panoramic Suite will replace some existing suites that are on the back of the ship. So actually, this is a lot easier than this was actually an easier one to predict because the other ones, the other ships I probably wouldn't have done so well on. But it's interesting on some of the other ships, some of the places that got replaced, like gutting Music Hall on Ovation, and then didn't get replaced, like not putting Playmakers, as I mentioned earlier, on the Liberty of the Sea. So it's just, it's always interesting. This is like the closest thing we have here in Cruise World of like sports talk, where you kind of like shoot the breeze and speculate on what could have been. I feel like this is the closest thing we got to that. Next email is from Katie. Hey Matt, love your blog and videos. Got a question for you in regards to the non-alcoholic drink package. Say I want to purchase a pina colada. Would I pay only additional cost of the alcohol, or would I have to pay for the full price of the drink? I don't want an alcoholic drink every time, but maybe once in a while on the cruise. The answer is you can't be like, hey, I want to buy a pina colada with alcohol, but I have the refresher package and get a discount. It doesn't work that way. The only thing you could do, Katie, is you could buy a pina colada and then a shot and then add the alcohol yourself. This strategy, I don't think works as well as you think. You're going to overpay for it because the shot of alcohol and it's just, you're better off just paying for the cocktail itself, believe it or not. So to answer your question directly, no, it doesn't. You can't get like I have the refreshment package. Can you knock $8 off or whatever of the pina colada that has alcohol? It doesn't work that way. It's either with alcohol or without. There's no in between there. So yeah, sorry to be the bearer of bad news. And our last email today is going to be from Dodie Payer. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm not much of a gambler, so my accumulated points are pretty low. We'll be selling on start of the season. I'm hoping to change that. I do have a question, though. If I earn, say, 143 points on a cruise and use those points for free slot play, are they deducted from my annual Casino Royale total calculated between April 1st and March 31st? Good question. The answer is no, it doesn't. It kind of seems like it would be, but it's not. So when you're on a cruise, let me explain what Dodie's talking about here. When you're in the casino and you spend a week in the casino and you earn, I'll make up a number, 500 points. Okay. You earn that 500 points goes towards your annual total with Casino Royale. But you can convert those points to free play on board that sailing. And when you do that, it's going to then show, oh, you have 0 points. But in reality, you still have that 500 points for your casino total for the year. So there you go. Thank you, Dodie, for the email. Thank you, everybody, for checking out this episode of the Royal Caribbean Blog Podcast. Of course, you can always email me your questions that I will try to get to as fast as I possibly can by emailing Matt, M-A-T-T, at RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, Matt at RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Until next time, I'm Matt. We'll talk again real soon.